Metallica 72 Seasons album review. Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? Johnny here from What's Spinning here tonight to chat about this latest album from Metallica. Thrash metal icons, pioneers, one of the best to ever do the damn thing. They've been at it since the early 80s, and as far as their 80s output goes, I mean, what else can I possibly say at this point that hasn't already been said? I mean, whatever your flavor is, whether it be the gnarly and in-your-face Kill 'Em All, my personal favorite Ride the Lightning, the politically charged Master of Puppets, or the more progressive and I don't know, just not exactly my cup of tea, and Justice for All. Whatever it is in the 80s as far as Metallica's output goes, you can't go wrong with it. It's everything else ever since that has, honest to God, been all over the place for me. I've got thoughts on all sides of the spectrum. You may say that Metallica sold out with the Black Album. You might be right, but I still love the damn thing. Actually, it's honestly one of my favorite Metallica projects. Some of my favorite tracks are on there. Big Sad But True guy. Love that track. But then, you know, it's all fun and games till you get to Load and Reload. I mean, I genuinely forget how bad these albums are at the end of the day. I mean, I've always thought that Reload is just a little bit better than Load. Sue me, I kind of like Fuel, but both of these albums go well over an hour long, which is terrifying at the end of the day. And honest to God, I don't even want to talk about Saint Anger. People do that enough, without me talking about it, so let's just move on. Now, I will say this. There were a handful of tracks that I did enjoy on Death Magnetic. I remember being young and buying the album when it came out and enjoying some tracks on there. I still do to this day, but at the end of the day, we had just gotten so far from where the band originally was that, I don't know, there was seemingly no turning back, and I don't think the album has aged particularly well. Now, the last time we heard from Metallica with Hardwired to Self-Destruct, genuinely, I didn't hate the album. I didn't think it was great, but I, for one, thought that it was Metallica having some fun and being themselves and putting out a decent album. I think I gave it like a decent 6 out of 10 when it came out. Honestly, I didn't think it was terrible. I really didn't. But that leads us to this new album, 72 Seasons. This thing is well over an hour. And I initially, had my reservations on it just because of how much we've been through with Metallica, because we've been through a lot. But leading up to this thing, I thought they dropped a slew of very impressive singles. So much so that I actually got a little hyped for this thing. And you know what? This album's not bad. This album starts off with its title track, 72 Seasons. And you know what? Freaking what? This is a great intro. This is a great single. It's got that triumphant feel. It's got that great energy to it. This, to me, sounds exactly where Metallica should be right now. All around, we are getting performances from all four members that I genuinely love. The cohesion on this track, the unity, I'm surprised. The drumming is right where it needs to be. The rip is really memorable, and James sounds great on vocals, too. Even the production is suiting them really nicely, and this might just be me. As far as a chorus goes, I think this is one of the most memorable on this entire album. Hell, it might be the most memorable track they've put out in a really long time. This is just a great single that'll probably end up on my singles list at the end of the year. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I did fear quite a bit about the deep cuts on this album going into it, but then I hear Shadows Follow, and honestly, I'm once again impressed. Once again, it's got a really memorable riff, and an intensity that I haven't heard from Metallica, and a cohesion from them that I haven't heard in quite some time. I'm very impressed. James sounds absolutely vicious on these vocals, during the verses especially, and once again, the songwriting, it's not bad. Yeah, it's got a few more cliches than I probably would have liked to have heard. Trust me, it gets a lot worse later on, but right now, this is easily better than what they've been doing over the last 20 years. I mean, God, I might be scarred from listening to Load and Reload back to back last week, but right now, this sounds genuinely nasty. And that solo is raw power. Good on you guys. I've loved Screaming Suicide since it dropped as a single as well. It's muscular, it's got that depth to it. A lot of the riffs on this album are just what the doctor ordered. I love the throttling verses and the intense hook that we get here. This is a great track. And I have to point out, the elephant in the room, the majority of the tracks on this album are well over 5 minutes long, but a lot of them are justified. And Sleepwalk My Life Away, I had my reservations on this track. I heard that chugging riff, and I didn't like what I heard at first. And you know what? It's not as upbeat or as winding or as other tunes here. The energy is not as fierce here. But for a more robust, almost groove metal track that we get on this album, it's actually done really well. And not for nothing, this is easily one of my favorite James Hetfield vocal performances on this entire album. Listen, this album is far from perfect, trust me. But for me, as far as my opinion goes, this may be their most genuinely solid project since the Black Album. Yeah, we're going back. But like I said, this album is far from perfect. I hear You Must Burn, and I really cringed pretty hard. I mean, I was totally in the groove. I'm thinking to myself, wow, we're almost halfway through the album. Where's the filler? Ah, here it is. I mean, I said it earlier, there are some songwriting cliches on this album, and it doesn't get much worse than this track here. But on top of that, this instrumental it's pretty lukewarm. I mean, this is much more along the lines of what I thought we would be hearing on this album. It's clunky, it's awkward, it's really not as inspired. It's really ugly, and we have another 7-minute runtime on this track, and woof, it is rough. I think this is the worst track here. Chasing Light is also just ugly, man. Everything from this chugging riff to the lyrics that are suffocatingly cheesy are just not my cup of tea. We have gotten so much genuinely fun material in this album that just sounds like it came very easily to Metallica. Then there's this. This just sounds like, I don't know, like a rejected track from Load and Reload. And in the rubble of this absolute mess of a track, Metallica just sounds disconnected. And if I had to choose a single that didn't really hit me as far as, you know, like a great single goes, If Darkness Had a Sun, it really has not hit me nearly as hard as the other singles. And listen, there are much worse tracks on this album, but let me tell you, when these tracks get a little ugly and a little disoriented, these 6-minute runtimes feel like 18-minute runtimes. If anything, this track has actually lessened on me since I first heard it. The vocals here, no bueno. And the songwriting just gets really repetitive. I just know they can do so much more. In Room of Mirrors, it's very average. I don't think it's bad, I just think it's way too melodic for its own good. Especially during the verses, I just feel like James is trying way too hard. You may agree, you may not. I mean, there's actually things about this track that I really enjoy. Like, I do think the solo and the instrumental in general are actually really good, but this just, at the end of the day, comes off to me like a really good track, but from like one of their worst albums. Like, if this was on Death Magnetic, I would have been up in arms about it. So clearly, this album is not perfect. But I will say this album is a lot of fun. Metallica haven't sounded this unified in, I genuinely don't remember how long. And I think that this album, if anything, is much better than it probably should be. I do really like Lux Æterna. This track is not only one of the singles here, but it's one of the shortest tracks here. It is raw, it is wild, it's a 3-minute burst of energy, and it's not usually Metallica's bag, but honestly, they do it really well. It's a great switch up, and things come off really exciting. Crown of Barbed Wire, I honestly didn't think I was going to enjoy, but I ended up really loving it. This is another blood-pumping, fist-in-the-air jam, and is it cliche central? Yes sirree, but I will give it a pass. I actually kind of love it. It's groovy, it's big, it sounds like Metallica in 2023. Can we ask for much more? And you could argue that Too Far Gone is a little bit of Metallica by the books, but at this point, I don't have any problem with that. It really leads to some of the most nasty, gnarly instrumentals on this entire album, and some of the best vocal performances too. Yeah, James definitely sounds at his most passionate here, which is great. And there's also a really great solo from Kirk. I mean, this is Metallica being Metallica, and that's it. And with Inamorata, I have to give credit where it's due. This is by far the longest and most, I don't know, epic track here, standing in at over 11 minutes, and I was kind of worried about that, but it's also one of the most looming and dark and gritty tracks here. I mean, the riff alone, I have to take a moment and salute just how nasty it is. It is badass, but more importantly, Metallica kind of really just keep surprising you for those 11 minutes. Bluesy at times, it's gritty at others, it's epic as hell, and it has that sense of finality to it. I would even say, and you may quote me on this, I think it's the best deep cut here. And for 11 minutes, Metallica just sound like this unified beast of heavy metal, and I just have to salute that. Good on you. Most of this album, you know what? It works. So one way or another, whether it be by excess or just unification or just sounding like they're having fun, Metallica end up putting out some of their best material, I would argue, since the Black Album. And no, this album is far from perfect. As a matter of fact, when things get nasty and ugly, things just get like pulling teeth from one moment to one moment. It gets really bad really quick. Not to mention, this album's an hour and 17 minutes long. It's a long one. But the majority of this material here just sounds like where Metallica should be in 2023. Is it perfect? No. Is it fun? Absolutely. And you may hate this album, but for now, I'm feeling a very light 7 on this album. But let me know what you all think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.